Order, court is again in session.
Deputy Jones, thank you. In the Murray case, the defendant, Dr. Murray, is present with his counsel is before the people, by their counsel is before all jurors and alternates are present. Good afternoon again. Once again, thank you for your patience. Mr. Chernoff, you may call your next witness.
The defense calls Dr. Allan Metzger.
Sir, please stand in the witness box. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please be seated. Please state your name for the record. Spell your first and last names.
Allan Metzger, Allan Metzger.
Dr. Metzger, good afternoon, sir. Let me provide you with some instructions which I give to every witness in every case. The first, please sit back and relax. The second, please speak loudly so we can hear you. The third, if you are called upon to provide a yes or no answer, answer that way rather than which can be confusing. And lastly, please wait until you hear an entire question before you answer it, even though you think you may know what the question calls for. Is that acceptable?
Yes, thank you.
This will be direct examination. Mr. Chernoff.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
Dr. Metzger, thank you for coming.
Yes.
First, tell us what your occupation is.
I am a physician, a general internist, and rheumatologist.
And where is your principal office?
Principal office is near Cedars, West Los Angeles.
And how long have you been situated in that office?
I've been in practice since 1974, in this office since 1981.
At some point during your time as a doctor, did you have occasion to meet Michael Jackson?
Yes.
Okay. Could you tell us when that was?
Exactly when I met Michael was probably 15 to 20 years ago. I'm not absolutely sure of the first time I saw him.
Was it prior to 2000?
Prior to 2000?
Yes.
Definitely.
Prior to 1995?
Definitely.
When you, and at some point during that period of time, Dr. Metzger, did you start treating Michael Jackson for
Yes.
various things?
Yes.
How would you describe your relationship with him as the years progressed?
It began professionally, and over the years we had become close over the birth of his children, and in many ways I was a confidant and a friend for many years, mostly one of his primary physicians in Los Angeles.
Okay. You say mostly one of his primary. Were you aware of other physicians?
Off and on there may have been other physicians who he would call on as specialists for either dermatology or other issues, but I understood me to be the main internal medicine physician.
The specialists that he would call in, do you know who the specialists were? Were they at your recommendation?
I'll sustain the objection 350 and 352.
Do you know Dr. Arnold Klein?
Yes, I do.
How long have you known him?
Sustain.
Dr. Metzger, I'm going to limit. I understand you have known him, Michael Jackson, for quite some time, but I'm going to limit the questions I have for you for recent times, in 2009, prior to his death. Do you recall receiving a phone call from Michael Jackson in February 2009?
Yes.
Okay. Now, prior to that time, when was the last time you had spoken to Michael Jackson?
Approximately a year earlier. I believe he called me in early 2008.
Would that be July 2008?
I'd have to refer to my records.
You have your medical records with you?
Yes, I do.
Would you please refer to them? Now, Dr. Metzger, are you holding the entirety of the medical records that you have on Michael Jackson?
I am bringing my most recent records from 2002.
All right. And how many pages do your records
5
consist of?
pages.
All right. Okay, so when did you speak to Michael Jackson in 2008?
June 12, 2008.
June. All right. And what was the conversation about? This
Overruled.
The conversation was about his health, sleep issues, nutrition, and some skin care issues. I believe at that time he was primarily living in Las Vegas.
Prior to June 2008, when was the last time that you spoke to Michael Jackson?
Overruled.
Many years earlier.
Can you estimate for us the year?
Again, referring to my records, June 23rd of 2003, he came into the office.
All right, and this is the Los Angeles office.
Yes, he came to the Los Angeles office.
So 5 years later, Michael Jackson called you,
Yes,
and this was in June of 2008.
correct.
And one of the complaints that he had, or one of the things he wanted to talk to you about, was sleep issues.
Let me refer to my records. He had told me that he was taking Xanax for sleep. We had also seen him for a preoperative examination for some forms of therapy.
All right. The conversation with Michael Jackson was recorded in your medical records. Is that
Yes.
correct? Is this just a typed up note?
Yes, I dictate my notes generally after I see the patient in the office, after a phone call, or after a house call.
When was the next time you heard from Michael Jackson?
Well, it was 203, and then the next time was 208.
All right. And in June 2008, what was the conversation about then?
Overruled. You may answer.
General health issues. He was under stress and taking Tylenol PM, which is Benadryl and Tylenol for sleep. I asked him when he was next coming to Los Angeles. He wasn't sure. And we talked about some basic skin care and his back strain.
Is that all you talked about?
I believe that was it.
You didn't tell him that you would look forward to seeing him when he arrived in Los Angeles?
I always socially and medically want him to know I'm available for him. I probably said, I'm looking forward to seeing you.
Did you happen to mention any other doctor to him during that discussion?
I asked him to come and see me and Dr. Klein because we had talked about skin issues. Dr. Klein was his dermatologist.
When did you next hear from Michael Jackson?
And the witness is reviewing his written materials.
February 26th of 2009.
All right. And this was a phone call or was an office visit?
Phone call.
Were you aware at that time that Michael Jackson was back in Los Angeles?
I believe he was here rehearsing at that time. I'm not sure when the phone call was made exactly what his location was.
How were you aware that he was rehearsing?
He'd mentioned it, and I'd seen it in the press.
Now, prior to the phone call that you received in February 2009, had you been contacted by either Michael Jackson or anybody in his household or anybody that worked for him?
Objection to relevance 352.
Overruled. May I answer, please?
Thank you. I'm not sure. I may have had a rare phone call with somebody in his environs. I had been in touch often with his nanny who would help with the children.
This
If you have a moment, please. Apparently, the mic isn't working right. Deputy Jones wants to just fix the amplifier. One moment. Thank you, Deputy Jones.
this nanny that you're referring to, is this Grace Rwamba?
Yes.
And she was also his personal assistant at that time?
Off and on, she functioned as a personal assistant and took care of the children.
You recall her contacting you at some point in 2009?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled. You may answer yes or no.
I had been in touch with her infrequently in 2008, 2009, and probably before then, generally over the children's issues.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said last.
I may have been in touch with her frequently, most of the time over social issues. How are the children doing? I really like to keep tabs on how they were doing.
When was the next time you personally spoke with Michael Jackson?
After February 26th, 09.
And what date was that?
The
That
witness is
was-
reviewing his materials.
I visited him at his home at his request, April 18th, 2009, in Beverly Hills.
How did you wind up visiting his home? How did you know to go visit his home?
Michael called and asked me to come over to discuss several things.
Could you tell us at what time of the day or night or evening that you went to see Michael Jackson?
It was definitely day. I think it was early afternoon. April 18th, we'd have to check if it was a weekend. I don't recall.
It might have been a Saturday.
I think it was a weekend. I think it was a Saturday or Sunday.
Might it have been Easter weekend?
I don't remember.
All right. Was it unusual for you to visit Michael Jackson's house?
Not unusual, but infrequent.
Infrequent. Did he explain to you at any point when he called you why he wanted you to come to his house?
Basically said, I want to talk to you about some health issues, and he's known that I've been checking up on the kids and knew that I really wanted to see the kids.
All right. What was, when you came to the house, who was there?
The three children, Michael, some security guards that I don't recall names of at the moment. Grace was not there. I don't know who else was in the home.
At the time that Michael Jackson spoke to you, did he tell you that he was seeing any other doctors?
No.
And did he explain to you after the conversation that you had with him, was it a private conversation or were these other individuals around when you had this talk?
It started with Michael, myself, and the children. Then the children went outside, and Michael and I had privacy in the living room.
All right. You sat in the living room with Michael Jackson
Yes,
in private,
yes.
and you talked to him about medical issues.
Mostly medical issues and the stress he was under with all the rehearsal schedule.
How long was this conversation?
I think I was there for an hour, hour and a half. Totally, I would say that conversation, 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
How would you characterize his state of mind at that time?
Lucid.
Well, Doctor, let me stop you for a second. You said lucid.
Yes.
That's not traditionally a state of mind question. Have you observed him not to be lucid in the past?
Objection, relevance.
Well, I think counsel may be testifying too, so the objection is sustained. Re-ask the question.
Other than physical medical conditions, how was his mental outlook? Did he seem worried? Did he seem stressed?
He was excited. He was talking to me about some creative things that he was thinking about. He spoke to me about his excitement and fear about the tour.
What was his fear?
I think his fear was that this was a big obligation, and he didn't want to not do a good job with 50 shows. And he realized it was a huge ordeal to do that.
Did he believe that he was up to the task?
I think he believed he was up to the task, but also fearful about his nutritional state and staying healthy.
All right. What did he talk to you about with regard to those issues?
He talked about his nutritional state and some of the things that I had worked with him years ago. He also had various health people and health